What if the key to ultimate freedom isn't holding on tighter, but learning to let go completely? Elena stared at the shattered clay on her studio floor. 6 months of work destroyed in seconds. Her hands trembled as she knelt beside the fragments, feeling her chest tighten with each ragged breath. This sculpture was supposed to be her breakthrough, the piece that would finally prove her worth as an artist. Now it lay in ruins, and with it, everything she thought she was destined to become. She had poured her entire identity into this clay, making it mean everything about her value and talent. Without this masterpiece, who was she? Just another struggling artist, whose dreams had crumbled to dust. The morning sun streamed through her studio windows, indifferent to her devastation and silent tears. Elena fled to the garden outside her studio, desperate to escape the wreckage of her ruined dreams. There she found Dharma kneeling among rose bushes, her weathered hands working soil with surprising gentleness. The older woman glanced up, her eyes taking in Elena's tear-stained face without judgment or alarm. "Something broke," Dharma said simply, not as a question but as an observation of natural law. Elena nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat that threatened to unleash more tears. "This garden teaches me every day about letting go," Dharma continued, gesturing to blooms in various stages. "See how flowers bloom, fade, and die? I don't cling to any single petal or mourn each wilted stem. I tend them fully while they live, then release them when nature calls them back to soil." Dharma patted the garden bench beside her, inviting Elena to sit and truly listen with an open heart. "What you're experiencing isn't just loss," she began gently. "It's the pain of attachment meeting inevitable change. Intentional detachment isn't about not caring, Elena. It's about engaging fully while releasing your grip on outcomes. The ancient Stoics understood this deeply. They called it the dichotomy of control, a fundamental truth of existence. You control your effort, your attitude, your creative response to each moment as it unfolds before you. But outcomes, those dance to rhythms beyond our command: gravity, time, accident, the will of others. Recognizing this isn't limitation or defeat, it's liberation from the exhausting tyranny of needing everything perfect. You become free to create without fear, love without conditions, live without constant grinding anxiety about results." "But why does letting go feel like dying?" Elena asked, voicing the terror that gripped her heart. "Because your mind treats loss as a threat to survival," Dharma explained with compassionate understanding of human psychology. "Loss aversion makes us cling desperately to what we have, fearing emptiness more than we desire growth. But there's something deeper happening here, something more painful than simple fear of material loss or failure. Your attachments aren't really about the sculpture, Elena. They're about who you believe you are and must become." Elena's breath caught as truth struck. She hadn't just wanted success, she'd made it mean everything about her worth. "We confuse having with being," Dharma continued. "The sculpture breaking felt like your very self was shattering too. You've woven your identity so tightly with outcomes that when things shift, you feel annihilated instead of simply changed." "There's another prison we build for ourselves," Dharma said, watching a butterfly land briefly on her open palm. "The illusion of control, the belief that worry and tight gripping can somehow manage what refuses to be managed." Elena thought of her sleepless nights, mentally rehearsing gallery reactions, obsessing over every minute sculptural detail endlessly. How many hours had she spent trying to anticipate every possibility, control every variable in her artistic journey? "You've exhausted yourself trying to hold water in your clenched fists," Dharma observed with gentle truth-telling. "The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. Yet you keep squeezing, believing this time will be different." Elena realized how fragile this had made her. One accident, one setback, and her entire world collapsed completely. She had built her peace on foundations of sand, demanding the universe bend to her will and timeline. "So how do I break free?" Elena asked, hungry now for practical wisdom rather than just philosophical understanding. "The first tool is mindfulness," Dharma replied. "Not mystical transcendence, but simple conscious observation of your inner world. Learn to observe your thoughts and emotions without becoming them, without collapsing into their temporary stories about reality. When fear arises, don't say 'I am anxious.' Instead say 'I notice anxiety arising in my body and mind.'" Elena tried it silently, feeling the subtle but profound shift in her relationship to the morning's devastation and grief. This small grammatical change creates space between your essential self and temporary experiences passing through your consciousness. You become the sky watching clouds, not the cloud itself dissolving. The witness, not merely the witness drama. In that space lives freedom. the ability to feel deeply without being destroyed by every storm that passes through. The second tool is what I call the pre-mortem, Dharma continued, plucking a wilted rose and studying it thoughtfully. Before beginning any project or endeavor that matters, pause and ask yourself one powerful liberating question clearly. If this fails completely, utterly, catastrophically, what will I actually do? Not feel, but concretely do with my life then. Elena thought of her next sculpture idea, already forming in her imagination despite this morning's devastating loss and pain. If it breaks, if critics hate it, if galleries reject it completely, I'll make another one, she said slowly, testing truth. Exactly, Dharma smiled warmly. Making peace with worst-case scenarios removes their power to terrorize and paralyze your creative spirit. Elena felt something loosening in her chest. Failure wasn't death, just data, just another turn on the winding path. She could survive anything except the prison of needing everything to turn out exactly one perfect predetermined way. The third tool is healthy boundaries, Dharma said, gesturing to the garden fence covered in blooming jasmine vines beautifully. Boundaries aren't walls of fear. They're conscious choices about what truly deserves your precious limited energy and emotional investment. Not every criticism requires your response. Not every possibility demands your anxious attention or immediate decisive action right now. Elena thought of the countless hours she'd spent worrying about people who might not even notice or remember her work. Learn to discern what you can genuinely influence from what you must release into the river of uncontrollable existence. This isn't indifference or cold detachment. It's wisdom. Knowing where your effort creates value versus where it creates only suffering. You can care deeply about your art while releasing the need to control every viewer's reaction or interpretation completely. Boundaries protect your peace, your creative energy, your ability to show up fully for what truly matters in your life. In the weeks that followed their garden conversation, Elena returned to her studio with new eyes and transformed perspective. She molded clay with fierce intensity and love, but when pieces cracked or designs failed, she simply began again calmly. Each setback became valuable data rather than catastrophic disaster, teaching her something essential about form, technique, or material properties. Her stress dissolved into creative flow, that timeless state where effort feels effortless and creation becomes pure joyful expression. Without emotional desperation clouding her judgment, Elena made clearer artistic decisions, trusting her instincts instead of second-guessing endlessly. Even her relationships transformed subtly but profoundly as she stopped needing others to validate her worth or prove her identity. She could actually love people as they were, not as props in her story of becoming successful or worthy. The less she needed specific outcomes, the more fully alive she felt in each unfolding precious moment of existence. 6 months after the shattering, Elena stood before her latest sculpture with hands open, palms facing upward in offering. It was her most powerful work yet. Not because she'd gripped tighter, but precisely because she'd learned to release completely. She understood now that detachment isn't a destination you arrive at once, but a daily practice of conscious choosing. Every moment offers the same fundamental choice: grip tighter in fear, or open your hands in trust and freedom. The chains were never locked from the outside, she realized. They were only held in place by her own desperate clenching. Her inner peace rippled outward now, touching students she taught, friends she listened to with full presence and acceptance. This is the power of intentional detachment, engaging fully with life while holding outcomes lightly, with open, compassionate hands. You too can choose freedom in this very moment. Let go, not of caring, but of the suffering grip. The chains were never locked. They were only held. Open your hands.